So let us begin. Thank you to the Chamber and especially Gareth for inviting me to talk to you about something I'm quite passionate about. Gareth, thank you so much. Did you want to say a few words to open up the webinar?
Well, thank you very much, Ray. Welcome to everyone on this webinar. I would like to note in particular the Consul General of South Africa, Tandiwe Fedane, joined by Adele Fourie, Jacques Ndumtumbe. He's the Vice President of the Canada-Africa Chamber of Business on the continent, and Jacques kindly introduced me to you, Ray, so thank you for that. And to everyone else who may be watching this, if not live, then certainly by recording. Ray Corvelis is an individual who many would say needs no introduction, certainly among those who know him. With 25 years of leadership experience, Ray's managed a variety of complex projects and grown businesses across a whole range of jurisdictions with a very people-focused approach. And that people focus may sound cliche, but the numbers don't lie. I know, Ray, you've globalized your business and doubled its enterprise value by 130%, revenue up 70%, and optimized both business and people-led leadership, or people-focused leadership to achieve a lot of organic growth. 4,500 employees on 5 continents is certainly no small feat. And it was all done, I know, in your view, around a strong values-based corporate culture that you're going to share with us today. Your leadership is well recognized, as are your qualifications. But I think what others say about you, Ray, is probably the best testament, describing huge excitement from various CEOs in the corporate sector about the fact that you've moved into sharing what you've achieved in business through leadership webinars and seminars like these. So welcome, and welcome to each one who's joined us today here at the Chamber. Ray Corvelis, over to you.
Gareth, thank you so much, and thank you for your kind words. And welcome to everyone who's taken time out to listen to what I'm passionate about and what I'd like to share with you, and some of the lessons I've learned on my leadership journey. Certainly I've worked across various jurisdictions, and a lot of the work I've done has been in Africa, and it's a continent that I still love dearly and I'm very passionate about. My passion has really become people. You know, leadership is about people. I also have someone on the line called, her name is Kalamba Vani. Kalamba is going to be, she's one of my partners, and she's going to be administering. If there are any questions, please post them into the chat box, and we'll try and deal with the questions. It is difficult to get real engagement on a webinar, but we'll do our best. Kalamba, do you want to give a 30-second intro?
Of course. Thank you, Ray, and welcome everybody. My equally as passionate as Ray is about people, I am equally as passionate about transformational leadership. So as Ray indicated, my name is Kalamba Vani, and transformational leadership is something I've been doing for quite a long time in my career. Many may ask, what is transformational leadership? I believe, in my humble opinion, it's a method that strengthens the talent within the organization. And we do that by focusing on the development of the functional team, the culture, and leadership qualities. And I know today Ray is going to be speaking on many of those topics. After all, as we all know, success starts with people, and I am excited to be here today on this journey with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalamba, and I'm equally excited to talk about my passion. So let's get underway. We will have time at the end to take some questions. So I do suggest that you have a pen and paper handy, because I am going to put you to work a little bit, but let's get going. Imagine a workplace where everyone feels responsible for the performance of the business. Imagine a workplace where everyone feels empowered and everyone feels motivated to improve the way things are done. And imagine a workplace where everyone feels responsible for each other's well-being, for each other's happiness, as well as the business. Some of us may think it sounds like a little bit of a work of fiction, like a Neverland, you know. I don't think it is. In my career, I've seen how it is really possible to have a truly motivated and empowered and happy team achieve what you may consider the near impossible. But this doesn't happen by chance. It doesn't come easy. It takes true inspirational leadership, not management. Leadership. Management's about doing things right. But leadership is about doing the right things. Leadership's about behavior. Being a leader means that people follow you willingly, and that's important. A team can be able to perform, and a team can be able to achieve quite extraordinary results. It's something that gives the team a real sense of purpose and a real sense of accomplishment. And I've seen this. I was called in to lead an iron ore project a number of years ago in Africa. The project was, through the 3 phases, was around $1 billion US dollars worth of project. So it was pretty significant. And when I came onto this project, the project was probably, I came on in month 6, and I was asked to look after the job because it was in trouble early on. When I got onto the project, it was probably 7 or 8 months behind schedule in month 6. So there were some challenges. The project was turned around. It was finished ahead of schedule. It was finished under budget, and it was completed with a very happy client. And how could we do this? How could we do this? We do this through empowering people, helping people align on the purpose, and make sure that the purpose and the accomplishments are celebrated, not at the end of the project, that's too late. Celebrate them daily. Let's not get it wrong. Management efficiencies and operational excellence are very, very important things. I mean, after all, the essence of business is profit, right? Without profit, we don't have business. They're very important things. However, my message is alone, they can give you short-term results. Alone, they can give you short-lived success. Enduring companies need to focus on people. Enduring companies need to find leaders that put people first. And for a company to be truly effective and to produce enduring results, we need leaders across the organization who care about their people and value their people. Jim Collins, a renowned leadership author, wrote that great leaders put people first. Great leaders put who before what. And great leaders, once they put the who before the what, invest always and above all in their people. I think that's key to what the message today is. So for those of you who have just joined recently and we've just kicked off, this webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to download it if you missed the start. But welcome to everyone once again as we get going. Do you have a pen handy as we begin to go through the topics? So objectives for this engagement is really to talk about leadership development in the context of your business. How are we doing in leadership development? I want to talk a bit about purpose, culture, and values and behavior and how they drive results in your business. And I want to talk about how do we close some of the gaps and move towards achieving success as leaders. And I do invite you to put questions into the chat box if you have any. Columba will keep track of those for us. So first off, what's happening out there? I think especially with COVID, there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening in the business world and in our personal world that we live in. COVID's become something real for all of us. But what about the other challenges? I think that change is happening at a more rapid pace than ever before, than we've ever seen. Notwithstanding COVID, we've got the 4th industrial revolution, we've got the safety, health, and sustainability challenges. And we've got the people challenges. And the people challenges are at the bottom of the list, but they belong at the top. Of course, with the right people in place and the right attention and leadership and the development of those people, we can deal with all the other challenges. So what I want us to do is, as we start this journey of conversation through the topic, I want to invite you now to consider what the challenges are in your organization. What are your specific challenges? Because I want you to be thinking of those as I talk about leadership development and as I talk about purpose and values. So think about the top 5 leadership challenges that you have and write them down. while you think of them, I'm going to mention a few that was done in a recent survey or recent study on what CEOs find their biggest challenges are. Because often when I speak to leaders and I ask them what their top 5 challenges are, they struggle. So what are the top challenges? Finding the right talent, is that a top challenge of yours? Building better operational processes, aligning employees with your strategy, getting the most of productivity out of your people, building a solid business strategy, beating the competition, winning work, getting the executive team aligned, managing your G&A, your costs and your expenses, training of people, training of leadership. What are your key challenges? Write them down, and if you feel open to it, share it in the chat. What is your number 1 leadership challenge you have? As we progress through the conversations, I'd like to invite you to think of these challenges in the context of what I'm sharing with you. And I also want you to think about the goals that you need to achieve to overcome these challenges. And also think about some of the obstacles that may prevent you from achieving these goals. So let us move on. What are the various sources of leadership development? Where does the data come from? And there's various webinars like this, seminars, blogs, university programs, social media, conventions. There are many sources. There's many sources of data for leadership development. But really, how effective is leadership development? How effective has it been? How do CEOs see the effectiveness of leadership development in the workplace? And surprisingly, or maybe not surprising to you, this is a McKinsey survey that was done quite recently. Very small percentage of CEOs actually believe that they build an effective leaders, less than 10%. Around 10% of CEOs agree that leadership development initiatives have a clear and distinct impact on their business. And a similar percentage actually agree that leadership development achieves and sustains the desired results. And I think many would argue and agree that these results are pretty disappointing. And why is that? Why is leadership development, as noted by leading CEOs globally, producing disappointing results? Well, to answer that, we first need to look at, well, how is leadership development measured? How is the effectiveness measured? And the first way we measure that is through reaction, right? We've all seen this, right? You go on a program and you get a customer satisfaction survey at the end, and you rate on what your biggest learning experience was, and it's all reactionary, right? You might really be pumped up with emotion. You've had a great experience, and your customer satisfaction is great. Okay, so that's one way of measuring it. The other way is learning. What did you learn? You write a test. Our universities are very good at that, right? At the end of the program, you write a test and you pass or you don't pass. Okay, so that's another way to understand the effectiveness of leadership development. However, the areas that are not paid much attention to include behavior. To what extent did the leader's behavior change on the job? To what extent did the leader begin doing things differently to get different results? Not too many programs ask that question and evaluate that effectiveness. Not too many programs ask the question, what bottom line results did that leadership intervention have on my business? Not many programs, in fact, even track and measure the performance improvement through the program. There's not many that do that. But that is what true effectiveness in leadership development will look for. It will look for bottom line improvement. Because if your leadership development intervention is not producing an improvement in your bottom line, why are you doing it? What's the point? Training for the sake of training? That's just an overhead. There needs to be a return, right? So what we have found is that we need to do training and development for results. Leadership development must be designed to specifically change behaviors of the leaders on a predetermined business case. In other words, stated in another way, understand what success looks like in the future and have a program that focuses on those goals as you develop your leaders on the job. And then determine how you're progressing towards those results. Not at the end of the program, that's too late. Daily. Measure that you're influencing behaviors, measure that you're advancing towards the results that you're looking for in your leadership development. And by doing that, you also create a positive expectation that there are results being achieved. You're creating a motivating environment because people are seeing and you're measuring the improvements daily. Self-esteem, self-efficacy, and you're achieving results. So the leadership development actually becomes an investment and not an expense. I've been engaging with a professor at Queen's University, and they're looking at implementing a leadership development program for one of the MBA programs in one of the faculties. And she said to me that universities are really good at education, and educating people for the industry. But where even universities fail is imparting leadership development, creating the right behaviors in leadership to take them into the industry. And that is because we need to focus leadership development on training for results and changing behaviors. So what's missing? What's missing is retention and application, the application of the newfound skills and behaviors. Real engagement when you get to the workplace. So often, I'm sure we've all experienced it, you go on this wonderful leadership program and you come away and you're really fired up. You think, wow, that was so good. Okay, I'm filled with passion. I'm going to go and apply this. And you get to the workplace and what happens? Roadblocks, obstacles, people pushing against it. And there's no buy-in. And pretty soon, within a couple of weeks, there's what happens. The fire dies, right? And we don't get those enduring results. It becomes a fad. It becomes a failure, to be quite honest. So how do we fill some of these gaps? If leadership development is not producing the results that it should, how do we close some of these gaps? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. We've all heard that, right? We've all heard that so often. But what does it really, really mean? To unpack that a little bit, we need to understand what is culture. And we need to understand what are values. And a culture, our behaviors define our culture. And our values are the drivers of our behaviors that define our culture. So let's try to put that in context. So let's think about a family value. And I'm sure a family value we all have is honesty. Certainly is one of my family values. And when we have honesty as a family value, it means we expect the members of our family to be truthful all the time. Whether it's within the family or engaging with people outside of the family, we as a family want people to be truthful. That's the value of honesty. And what happens when our teenager is found being less than truthful? What we typically do is we call them aside and we have a conversation with them. So listen, our family value is honesty. That means what you just did there is unacceptable. And we need to improve that behavior. On the other hand, when the teenager displays that, and even in the most difficult of circumstances, is telling the truth, the honest truth, because even at the risk of losing friends, perhaps at school, but they stand by their value of honesty, what do we do then? What we should be doing is taking them aside and saying, you know what, that was fantastic. The fact that you lived the value of honesty, even in that difficult situation, at the risk of losing friends, you stuck to your guns. And that is the power of positive reinforcement. All of us in families and at home are very good at negative correction of the wrong behaviors, but what about the positive reinforcement of the right behaviors? That is really, really important. And that applies to business as well as to home, okay? So what about other behaviors, right? Behaviors associated with respect. For instance, in some African cultures, it's rude to decline a gift that's offered to you. In some African cultures, it's rude to show the underside of your foot when you engage with someone. Okay, when you cross your legs, it's rude to show the underside of your foot. In some Latin American countries and in Africa, it's rude to decline assistance from someone in a hotel that's offering to carry your luggage or whatever they might be wanting to assist you with. That's considered rude. Okay. In some other cultures, it's rude to offer a tip for service at a restaurant. Okay. In Oriental cultures, it's considered good and respectful to keep your feet together and bow to someone of greater authority. And the more, the deeper your bow, the more your respect is for the person. So what we say, what we eat, what we do, define our culture. So both values and culture, in fact, are the essence of our identity. Okay? Both values and culture are the principles or beliefs by which we live, whether as an individual or as a family or as an organization. They are the energetic drivers of our aspirations and our ambitions. Values and culture are the energetic drivers of our aspirations and ambitions. And that is key. And these aspirations and ambitions we call purpose. So what if I asked you as a leader, what is it that you do? I'm pretty sure most of you will be able to answer that pretty quickly if I asked you, what is it that you do? What if I asked you, why do you do it? I think that might be a little bit more difficult. Why do you do it? That is our purpose. And I know I've engaged with leaders in the past when I ask that question, I get some strange responses. Okay, and I've seen company strategic plans that our purpose is to grow a multinational organization. No, that's not your purpose. That's your what. That's what you're doing. Why are you doing it? Many leaders don't get purpose. The purpose is the why. We need to engage with our heads, which is the what, and we need to also engage with our hearts, which is the why. People do things self-willingly. They do things and are self-motivated because of the why. When I was on business in Johannesburg a number of months ago, before COVID, of course, I had a business dinner engagement and took an Uber ride because it was my intention to have a couple of glasses of wine and I wanted to get home safely. Whenever I get in an Uber vehicle, whether it be in Africa or whether it be in North America, I will always engage with, I find it really interesting just to talk to the Uber drivers. And this Uber driver's name was Knowledge, and immediately when he introduced himself to me, I realized he was probably a Zimbabwean living in South Africa. And I asked him, so Knowledge, tell me, how are you? How are things going? And his response was, you know, Ray, I'm living the dream. And I was quite taken aback that an Uber driver tells me he's living the dream. And I said, Knowledge, I'm really interested. Tell me a little bit more. And what he shared with me was, you know, had I still been in my hometown in Zimbabwe, I probably wouldn't have been properly educated. Had I stayed there, my children I have now probably wouldn't be in a decent school getting a decent education. But today, where I am in this great country, I'm able to get an education for my children. I'm able to put food on the table and give them the life that I've always dreamed of giving them. He said, I'm living my dream. My dear friends, that is purpose. That is purpose. A list of corporate values: communication, respect, integrity, excellence. Sounds pretty good, don't they? They're strong, they're meaningful, they're concise. Communication, respect, integrity, and excellence. These are the corporate values of a company as stated in their 2000 annual report of the Enron Corporation. I think history and the results showed us that those values were a hollow set of values. And what in my mind is so important is your values do not drive the business, the values drive the people within the business towards common behaviors and towards a common culture and towards a common purpose. And you need to have meaning in those values. They need to have meaning not just for you as a leader, but for the people of the organization. These values should drive the behaviors of every person in your organization. And everyone should embrace them, not just understand them, embrace them as their own. I know in the organization I work for, when we began this journey, I asked the leadership, what were the values of the organization? Not one of them on the most senior executive team could list those values for me. So there was a journey to go on, not just to understand what the values meant, but to have the people of the business embrace the values. In that journey, we went on a journey to grow the business. And a big part of that journey was mergers and acquisitions. And we did a number of pretty significant acquisitions in a short space of time. And as I embarked on that journey, I needed to understand where the risks lay so that we could understand what the obstacles to integration would be. And the more I researched before we embarked on the journey, what came through very strongly is that 90% of M&A transactions fail because of the post-merger integration failure. Absolutely make sure before you embark on a transaction that cultures are aligned, that values are aligned. That's very important. If you don't tick those two blocks when you're considering an M&A transaction, don't do the deal. And once you've done the deal, what I focused on and what I spoke about most was values and purpose and culture. That's what I spoke about. Helping the new organization we require to understand how aligned we are, and helping the two organizations understand that they actually are aligned and think along a common purpose to get the new organization to align with the purpose. Not one of those transactions were a failure. In fact, they were enormous successes for us. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. You've all heard that before, right? If you do the same old things, you're probably going to get the same old results. We've heard that before. This should give us a clue that as leaders, we need to focus on behavior. It should give us a clue that if we want different results, we need to do different things. It's in our actions, it's in our behaviors, right? That should give us somewhat of a clue. Because when people are emotionally invested, they want to contribute. Is that not really the role of a leader? Because incentives and rewards, I assure you, do not create long-term motivation. There's numerous studies being done that confirm that incentives and rewards do not create long-term enduring self-motivation. Discretionary effort comes from people who are emotionally invested. But again, many leaders don't understand what it takes to create the right environment that nurtures and encourages self-motivation. And those are on the screens: self-esteem, self-efficacy, personal control. People want to believe they have a sense of control. Okay? People need to believe in the bigger picture, the optimism. They need to believe in the purpose of the organization and the sense of belonging. And when people are emotionally invested, they will contribute. When people believe in your purpose and values, that fosters discretionary effort. And again, there's been many studies done. There's many Gallup reports, you can Google them, which will confirm that companies in the top quartile on engagements generally have far better results. And you can see the figures, so I won't read them to you. But what is important is at the heart of this, what drives the engagement on the right of the screen is leader behavior. Leader behavior drives values in the culture and cascades into the organization. That is critical. So how do we fill some of these gaps? It's fine to understand this, but what do we do now to fill them? And I think the important thing to understand is that success is a journey, not a destination. It's a journey. Success is the progressive realization of worthwhile predetermined personal goals. And some of the key words in there is progressive, small daily steps. Worthwhile must have an effect on the bottom line. What's in it for me as an employee? Worthwhile. Personal goals, everyone must own the goal. It must be personal not just to the leader, but personal to everyone in the organization. If we can understand that, it'll put some context into leadership development. Let's try and put some more context. Tiger Woods, right? We all know him. Some of us love him, some of us hate him. Tiger Woods completed an improbable and arguably one of the greatest comebacks in sporting history. After 4 back surgeries, personal scandals that forced him to hit rock bottom, came back to win one of the greatest golf championships on the planet, right? This comeback didn't come after 6 months of work, right? Prior to winning the Masters last year, Tiger's last win was 11 years prior. 11 years prior was his prior win. It was Tiger's persistence. It was his motivation. It was his commitment that allowed him to not just rebuild his swing, but to rebuild his body, to rebuild his confidence, to rebuild his own personal self-esteem through the collapse of his family that he experienced. 11 years later, the improbable became reality for him. What about some of our African sporting heroes that we all know of? Whether it be Maria Matolo, Brian Abana, Lucas Radebe. There's a host of them, right? What makes them different? Is it just talent alone? In Tiger's case, some might argue talent is really important. And you may have a good point. He arguably is one of the most talented golfers to have ever walked this planet, right? But it's not just talent. You know, what makes the number 2 in a certain sports discipline so much better than number 1? What differentiates the world champion from the runner-up? Because most times we don't remember even who the runner-up was, right? We call that the slide edge. And the slide edge is a lethal combination of talent. Yes, it's important. But most important is hard work and dedication, because talent alone won't get you there. And the founder of Alamar, Paul Myers, said it quite well. Whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon, must inevitably come to pass. And that is what we call the slight edge. That we learn through repetition, small daily steps or learnings. Okay, it took Tiger 11 years of small steps, rebuilding his body, rebuilding his swing to come back and be number 1 again. And the slide edge starts with goals, starts with goal setting. We also heard this one before, right? If you focus on nothing, you're probably going to hit it every time. Okay. And I know a lot of us say it in jest sometimes, but it's so important. We've all heard about SMART goals, right? We've all heard about that. I'm not going to talk to SMART goals and insult your intelligence. We all know what SMART goals are. But what I do want to talk about is that second S. And that second S at the end of SMART goals is for corporations and teams and companies. And that's shared. Well, SMART goals can be as smart as they want, but they need to be shared. People need to embrace them and buy into them, especially in an organization. Otherwise, you will have trouble achieving those goals. And it takes commitment, it takes focus, It's like many of us at 2nd of January, right? We have this New Year's resolution. We're going to hit the gym. We sign the 12-month contract. Off we go. We're going to the gym. And first week, we're there maybe 3 days a week. And next week, it's 2 days. And within a couple of weeks, we look in the mirror and say, gee, this isn't working. Or maybe we have a New Year's resolution. We're going to lose some weight, right? So we buy 5 diet books. And we read all the books. And we don't lose any weight. You've got to take action, right? We've got to take action. That is the slight edge. We can read as many leadership books as we want. Until you change your behavior, until you do things differently, you're probably going to get the same results. It doesn't help to read the book. Take action. Success is never an accident. It doesn't happen by chance. Success comes through a commitment to excellence. Success comes through a commitment to clear and focused and intelligent planning, setting clear goals, and then focused effort to achieve them. That's what drives success. And the slight edge is about setting those goals that will give you results. Focus on the bottom line. It's about taking those small daily steps towards that vision of success, towards those goals that you've set. Don't get despondent, measure daily, and reward yourself daily. Show up consistently and passionately and enthusiastically. It doesn't help to go to the gym once a week and expect your body to transform. That won't happen. You need to show up consistently and cultivate a burning desire backed by faith, a belief in the bigger picture, a belief in the purpose. And most importantly, embrace the reality of the facts as they are. Understand the obstacles, understand your challenges, will help you deal with them to move forward. Then focus on the right things. If they're not driving value, you shouldn't be focusing on them, not as the leader of the organization, not as a leader of people. Focus on the value drivers. Be committed to the long haul and be willing to pay the price. And my favorite, just do it. We've all seen the Nike swoosh. I love it. Let's not talk about it. Let's do it. Let's get in there and do it. That is the slight edge. And it's a daily progression towards excellence. And most importantly, like the sports people of this world, business people too need to practice and practice and practice. I'm going to pause for a moment because I know that Columba's got a story of a leader that she's worked with that actually lived a lot of this. So I'm going to ask Columba to share with us her story.
Thank you, Ray. When we ventured on this journey together and I saw this one particular slide, these attributes resonated with me personally and professionally. They reminded me of my previous boss, Brian.
Columba, you seem to have frozen. Gareth, can you hear Columba?
I just confirming I cannot hear Columbo's.
Okay. All right, it looks like we've lost her. When we get her back, I'm going to ask her to tell her story again. But sorry about this, guys. I had it out of control. I've messaged her just telling her she might have to exit and rejoin. So let me continue. Columba will come back and share her story with us as soon as she can. Around her experience of a leader that lived a lot of these components or characteristics of the slight edge and certainly had a profound impact on her life. So what is really needed in corporate ambition, and this is a model I've developed on how we develop and execute strategic ambition or strategic intent. That might be Columba. Let me see if I can get it back in.
Sorry about that, Ray.
No problem. We were just moving on. We weren't sure that when you joined, but we'll go back to you, Columba. Why don't you finish telling us your story?
I apologize, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you. When we started on this journey, you know, these attributes resonated with me both personally and professionally. It reminded me of my previous boss, Brian. He was consistently focused on the root causes of a problem rather than the underlying symptoms. He was constantly creating a culture of inquiry where it was valued and mistakes were viewed as learning opportunities. And that really set the tone for me with regards to learning and being part of this whole journey with him. He had a 600, 700 plus plant that he had to run on a regular basis. And as you can well imagine, it was a unionized environment. He was a big proponent of communication at all levels. He was always asking, what other options do we have? What is your opinion on that? How can we avoid these issues in the future? He communicated early and often, and that was his key. And he always combated the two most common complaints in an organization that most of us probably know is, no one ever asked me and no one ever told me. So you would often find Brian walking the plant floor, asking and having conversations with those individuals running the machines. No level was too big or small for him. Asking him how things were from a personal perspective, a business perspective, and you often found him, found Brian in the cafeteria with the employees. He wasn't afraid to mingle. He challenged all of us in a positive manner. I remember that, for that slight edge that Ray was talking about, where we as a team often got together on our own without being told, without being scheduled, to work out our issues. There were no silos. No one was better than the other. Brian exuded the empathy and humility that we all want in a leader. He led by example. So what we did naturally is we wanted to lead by example. We wanted to make him win. And if he won, we all won. We were the best plant in all of our region because of that. We worked together collaboratively and figuratively, really. As a matter of fact, and it's funny, I just remember this, I followed him to my next 3 jobs, as others did. And to be frank with you, if he hadn't retired, I would follow Brian to the end of the earth. He was such a great leader in that sense. And he made sure that everybody knew that they were equally as valued and committed, and he was committed to the long haul. So that was my story to Ray when I saw this, because it just hit home for me.
Excellent. Columba, thank you so much for sharing that. And it certainly is inspirational to hear that it is achievable. People can live with purpose and share that purpose with the organization. And I think that was what I loved about Columba's story when I first heard it. So, so as we were discussing what is needed, right? And as I was saying, this is a model that I've developed and used successfully around corporate ambition and delivering corporate initiatives and advancing the behaviors of the leadership team. Was at the heart of any corporate initiative, any strategic initiative, is an actively engaged leadership team. And that word actively is so important. And I first came across a concept of actively caring for people when I was very, very active in the safety part of our business, and I still have an extreme passion for safety and for the safe being of people. And in that engagement with a person called Dr. Scott Geller, who actually founded people-based safety, the concept of people-based safety, as well as actively caring for people. And within that is, we all care for people, right? Most of us. The issue is, do you actively care? What do you do about it? So as a leadership team, to be engaged, you need to be actively engaged. Just as Columba shared her story, that leader actively went out and engaged on a daily basis with people. At the heart of a successful leadership intervention is actively engaged leadership. And it's so important. Doing the right things. Once the strategy and goals have been set for your company, leaders need to then understand what the outcomes are they're looking for and define them very clearly to the organization. But in addition to the outcomes, you need to define what are the behaviors that you expect. What are the things that you need to be doing to achieve those goals? When these goals, outcomes, and behaviors are aligned at the leadership team, we then can cascade them into the organization and make sure that at each level of the organization, people are actively doing the right things. These high value activities, things that are driving value in your organization, are what we call the high payoff activities or the high payoff behaviors. And that's what leadership needs to focus on. If you keep doing something that's not driving value, you probably shouldn't be doing it. And then to use those slight edge principles. Once the goals and the behaviors are well understood, leaders must use those slight edge principles to relentlessly reinforce these high payoff behaviors and high payoff attitudes that drive the strategic intent of the business, all the while tracking and improving the bottom line of the business. The leaders need to focus on the business and the people performance, because it's the people that are going to drive the business. Continually readjusting and developing people, and continually readjusting and developing the outcomes, because circumstances change. And that is how we advance strategic initiatives successfully in the organization. So in my mind, successful leadership development absolutely is very possible. And I've seen it delivered. I've been a part of delivering it. And the key for me is that in terms of achieving a successful leadership intervention, and to achieve lasting and enduring results in your leadership development, we need to focus first and foremost on the person, on the total person. Because in order to lead others, you need to be a leader of self first. You need to unleash the leader within first and foremost so that you can lead others. Because if you can't lead self, how do you lead others? There's a need for that balance. Often we talk about this life-work balance, right? I wonder how many actually get it and live that balance. We need to understand that each person in your organization is complex and a unique individual with numerous different roles to fill in their lives. That is so important to understand. And the total person concept is an action-oriented way of life. It centers on goal setting in all aspects of your life, and it centers on setting up action plans for all areas of your life, that you have a balanced personal life. Because great leaders, as I say, need to learn to first lead self before they can lead others. In other words, we need to transform and unleash the leader within before we can lead people of the organization. So in this total person wheel that's up on the screen, I want you to think about those 6 areas. And again, write down which is the most important out of those 6 areas, whether it be financial and career, physical health, social, cultural, family, and home. As an individual, what is the most important aspect to you? Write it down. When I ask that question, typically the number one that comes up 80% of the time is family and home. Typically. Now ask yourself the question, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you spend most of your time and effort? My experience, again, when I do this exercise, is that typically the number one typically doesn't get the energy and the commitment that it deserves. And normally it doesn't even make the top 3. So leaders need to balance. They need to lead themselves before they can lead others. Of course, once we get into the total leader concept, there's a whole lot more competencies that we need to start equipping people with. And effective leadership needs to focus on all these competencies. You can't just be great strategic thinkers and think we're great leaders. You have a balance of competency. And great leaders will master all these competencies. The best leaders will excel at all these competencies, whether it be the total person development, or whether it be values and decision making, or whether it be strategic development, or empowerment and motivation. The greatest leaders will be masters of all of them. And the beauty of leadership development is it's a continuous learning process. You can always learn more because it's vast. And the best leaders, as I say, will excel at these. And organizations that commit to developing total leaders within the organization that have balancing in person and a balancing leadership competencies will excel in their sector. So effective leadership development, is it possible? Absolutely, I believe it's possible, as long as we focus on measurable results. And in order to do that, we need to evaluate where you are right now. Where are you as a leader? And where are your leadership team? Where are they? Where's your business? Understand what the performance gaps are and what is needed to succeed. What does success look like for your leadership team? Identify the changes that need to take place in your business and in the behavior of your leaders. Leadership then needs to engage on a journey. It's not a quick fix. It's not a switch return. It's a journey where we develop bespoke, unique action plans and implement them on the job to transform the performance of your organization through the leadership behavior. And it's designed to change behavior and foster new habits within the organization that lead to continued enduring results. And most importantly, in the leadership development is that the behaviors are applied to real business matters. It's not something you do in a classroom. It's something you do and drive real performance forward so that we can change the perception of CEOs that leadership development actually can be effective. And by working on real live company problems and company challenges and improving the results, you actually begin to hardwire that behavior change into your organization. And that will ensure long-term and ongoing results. All the time, you need to be tracking and measuring the performance. Don't wait until the end of the leadership development initiative. You track and measure daily on how you're performing against the goals that you've set. And I think if we do this, I think effective leadership development can become a reality for us. So what is needed? What is the goal of leadership development? Increase retention, increase the application to change the behaviors in an enduring way and to deliver enduring results. That is what the ultimate goal is. So we're sort of coming to a time where we can maybe take some questions. I think I did see 1 or 2 questions coming through to Columba. But before we do that, I want to just ask you, of those challenges that you noted up front, pick one and identify what are the goals that you need to put in place to cure the challenge. And for all the attendees of the webinar, I am going to send out this presentation in a PDF form, so you will get it. And I'm also going to send you a goal, some notes on how to set goals, real goals, smart goals, and also how to set up the action plans that you need to put in place. So I will send you a goal sheet that you can work with as a takeaway. What are the goals that you need to put in place to cure the challenge? And also, what are the actions that you need to take to achieve those goals? Remember I said earlier, goals that are not achieved are simply dreams. So I hope you found some of this informative and helpful. I'm certainly passionate about a lot of it, and I've seen results through a lot of it. And I want to thank you for being attentive. And are there any questions? I know that we sort of at time, but we did start sort of 7 or 8 minutes late. Are there any questions that we want to address?
There was one question on the chat about individuals that are consistently negative. They drain you and derail you from real work. How do good leaders deal with this challenge?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question that, you know, and all leaders will face that. So there is also a saying that if you can't change the people, change the people. So if people are consistently derailing, you know, there's an older adage out there, who's sinking your boat? If you can't get the person on board and get them positively motivated to be aligned with your values and your culture and the things you're trying to do, then maybe it's time to change the people. Okay, so leaders need to do all they can to get people on board. But if someone remains consistently off outside of the boat, then sometimes you need to take that hard decision.
Mm-hmm.
The first prize is to understand what's driving that behavior, to engage with the person and understand why that negative behavior is there and can you correct it and what do you need to do to correct it.
Excellent. Be happy to open it up if there are any other questions from the group. Thank you for that question. That was a really important question, and I appreciate that. Well, if there isn't any questions from the group here, Ray, I would encourage them to reach out to you or me to go through some of these issues. And I know the recording will be sent to them, and you have a few other things that you wanted to provide as well.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Columbus. So if there aren't any questions, maybe Gareth wants to offer some closing remarks, but happy to take your calls at a later stage, or I'll send you some takeaways, as I've said, and happy to engage with anyone who wants to have a further conversation.
Well, thank you very much, Ray. Thank you, Columba. Thank you to everyone who's been on this webinar. And certainly I appreciate your commitment, Ray, to building leadership across the board with your clear-cut examples that are relevant specifically to African markets for those of us based in Canada, but indeed built on our values that are universal. So a very big thank you to you once again. And for everyone on this call, we'll be sending a follow-up with more information. This will be a recording available publicly too for further dissemination across your networks. And finally, I also want to just acknowledge a few others who did manage to join us later on in the call, including the former Chamber President, Bruce Shapiro, and of course, representatives from government. We noted Tandiwe Fedana, the Consul General as well, and a few others. Ray, thank you very much. And if there are any final closing thoughts or message you would want to leave us, I'll give that over to you.
They have some wonderful comments here, and I just wanted to share them with the group. Very insightful, Ray. Thanks so much. Very informative, great webinar, and indeed a great seminar. The insight provided has been excellent. Looking forward to receiving further resources. So wonderful. Thank you. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Columba, and thank you, Gareth, and thank you all for attending. I think, you know, really my takeaway thought is believe in yourself. As leaders, we can make a difference. As leaders, we need to be the change that we want to see in others and in the industry. And if I can help you in any way, happy to share more learnings. I've got 30 years of learnings that I can share with you. So happy to help you. But let us all as leaders become that change in the industries that we work within. Thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of the day. If you're in Africa, enjoy your evening. And I will be sending out an email shortly, and we'll get the video, the live recording out so that you can download it if you missed parts of it. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.